During World War II, over 7 million women in Britain were employed in some form of war work.
If you look at some of the homefront posters from during World War II, you'd find that a lot of them feature the slogan, "Dig for victory."
The posters highlighted a growing issue, which was feeding the nation.
I found an article from 1940 which states that there was an immediate response to the government's appeal for more food production in Britain.
It goes on to state that the Women's Land Army got to work without delay. I wanted to find out more about the 117,000 women which replaced the 100,000 skilled male farm workers who went off to fight. So I asked Cherish Wotton, creator of womenslandarmy.co.uk, more about their story.
Women joined the Women's Land Army partly because they wanted to do their bit for the country, and a lot of them, when they're talking in their memoirs, will say, "I did my bit for the country by joining the Land Army." In the Second World War, you had women from all walks of life. Quite a lot of women from the cities who had been doing office jobs. Some women really liked the countryside, so they sort of wanted to grab the opportunity to go and work on the land. Some joined because they sort of saw it as a gateway to independence, the chance to travel around the country and sort of see different parts of it. And some joined because of the uniform. They really liked the breeches that they saw in the advertisements and thought, yes, I want to be wearing those. I want to sort of go into the countryside.
If you look at minimum weekly rations, you can see that there was little luxury in the diets of British civilians. Much of what they did eat, they would have grown.
Land girls undertook a range of different duties that included looking after animals, so milking cows, looking after pigs and lambs, market gardening, so sort of looking after the crops and then harvesting them. Some women were working in mobile gangs, so they would go around and do the same job at different locations, so such as killing rats. That would be a fairly consistent thing, I think, throughout the year, but some of them obviously were based on other farms where they did see the whole farm cycle through. For some women who came to the countryside, local population were quite judging on, well, are these women actually going to muck down and do the work? Majority did come from cities, so it was quite a shock for many when they came to the countryside because they saw these idealistic propaganda posters which really presented it in a really beautiful way, and when they came it was obviously a lot of hard work and lots of dirt and muck as they were sort of looking after animals, digging and things like that. There was certainly a complete change in lifestyle. I mean, for some women, they hadn't actually seen cows before and had literally no idea, how do you milk a cow?
Newspapers from during World War II highlight the pressures being put on agriculture. In 1943, the Minister of Agriculture was demanding more acreage for ploughing. Yet later headlines such as "How Britain Reaped Her Victory Crops" suggest that these challenges were being met.
I think a lot of them, once they'd been taught how to do it or trained, if they were lucky enough to have training, then they threw themselves into it and did prove in some cases they could do things better than the men. They had tractor driving competitions and things. So yeah, it was definitely a stark change in work, but I think that they threw themselves into it and did really well.
I found an article from as early as 1943 which boasted that 2 out of 3 British civilians were being fed by homegrown food.
Crops of wheat, barley and potatoes are said to have increased by almost 100% during the years 1939 to 45.
At the beginning of the war, 70% of Britain's food was imported. This compared with the end of the war where they were 70% self-sufficient. So the Land Army did have a really significant role in changing to that self-sufficiency. As a result of war, there was a wider acceptability of women, and especially married women, working. I think for land girls and lumberjills, then they showed that women could undertake the hard, heavy manual labour and go against people's prejudices and expectations of women.
The Women's Land Army was so successful that it continued post-war until 1950.